Hello, everyone. We're going live today. The African People Revolutionary Party. Check us out on IG. Thank you for joining the live, all zero of you so far. But I'm sure you're gonna see this after it's live. Check it, check it. And so we're gonna do some quick topics tonight. The main topic with myself and Brother Kwame. Boom. Bad Senorita, Abstrusita, and Brother Kwame. Um, and our topic tonight is communism, aka leftism, what it is and what it isn't. You want to go first, bro? What's going on?
Oh, so yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
So I think, well, I'll give you my definition of communism. I'll give you what communism is supposed to be. Communism is supposed to be, well, communism is the deconstruction of the state control government that consumes every small person's life. So when a said revolution would happen, the state powers like the police, the government, and all these things that they implicated to oppress people are demolished, and all the rule goes to the masses of the people. That what that's the definition of communism in a small um, explanation. And what is not communism to me, anything that has to do with a few owning the majority of the wealth within the country. And when there's no distribution of land and no distribution of wealth to the equally to the masses, that is not communism. Communism is when everybody has something equal and everyone is equal and the masses of the people rule their daily life and their government.
All right.
So that's my,
That sounds like a great definition, actually. We didn't do Merriam-Webster's version, but absolutely. You know, I would like to say the root of communism is the community. So, being community based, and less state control, right? And so,
yes.
for me, what it is the complete opposite of fascism. Ah,
Yes.
and
Definitely.
fascism is one person rules, and corporations are the bottom line for the entire society, and everyone is oppressed by their rules. Um,
Yes.
and so the wealth is definitely controlled. And I also think what it is the people having the ultimate say so,
That's
which
true.
you know you see in most communist countries. The when they want the leader to change, they make the leader change.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
coups are a regular thing in communist states. Sometimes they're expected, depending on who
Yes.
the leader is.
Yes.
So
I think.
that's
Yeah.
that's what it means to me.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And mainly like when that coup happens is when somebody doesn't implicate the destruction of the state powers and they want to be opportunists and they want to be make it into a fascist state and they want to control the rule. But like in certain countries like China, where it's an organized party and the masses of them. are working as one to for the greater need of their people. That's a, a set form of communism when everyone has a say what they do, or they're doing it for the better and greater cause of their people. Even though some people have opinions about China, but when if you look at them as a communist party, and either you're with the party or you're against the party in China. So they, anybody that's against the party is a counter-revolutionary. That's how they look at it, and that's how it is. If you're against the movement of the people and better in the land of the people, you're counter-revolutionary. And they deal with counter-revolutionaries in which ways that certain countries would not like. But said like Cuba, Cuba is a socialist country, which is socialism is the step in between and the transfer from communism, I'm sorry, capitalism, socialism to communism. Um, it's all a evolution of a state which helps the masses of the people when the evolution goes on like that, when they go that way, socialism and communism, like China did. And look at China right now. They're the biggest economy in the world, and they're about to be the superpower, but they're number two, I believe, or something like that, right?
Right. China is the number one communist country, and yeah, they're number two in the general global scheme for sure.
Yeah. So, then there are these countries that fake to be socialists, but they're actually capitalists, and not even given education. They're not given healthcare. They're not given uh, just basic human rights. They're taking advantage of the masses of the people, and they're being opportunists. Lenin talks about this. The opportunists always occur within the transformation from capitalism to socialism, and then they take it into a fascist state, and then a little bit of them control the riches, just like America. It's a sham in democracy.
Yeah.
You basically don't get to vote for anything that's happening in the House or anything. Those senators or whoever the hell you picked, they say, is the ones that's casting the vote. So if they feel a certain type of way that day, you might not have guns. If they feel a certain type of way, you might have guns. So you don't have any choice over anything you do in America. It's a sham democracy, basically.
Right.
And all of these other countries have sham democracy because that's how they approve. They keep the masses of the people at bay, making them think they're voting when they're
Absolutely.
not.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
Go ahead.
um, what I think is that with um the complaints about communism mainly are lack of freedom of choice, like occupation wise, because a lot of communist socialist countries do a placement test um, for careers at an early age that
Yeah.
determine. Yeah.
I mean, but that's a whole nother thing about how we let people think that it's okay for them to do whatever the hell they want when it's a greater need for mankind. If you're good at being a freaking nurse or a doctor, that's your job. That's
Right.
your job for the state, for your people. Then we got these bourgeoisie Negroes that go to college and
Right.
Instead of giving back to the community, they want to open private practices, and they want to charge an arm and a leg when the person is already missing an arm and a
Right.
leg. So by the time they're done, they ain't got no limbs. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Kwame talks about this bourgeoisie. Um, that's the whole um, plan for capitalism, to make a whole bunch of individuals. But yeah,
Right. But with the individuality comes a lack of responsibility to the community. And so
yes,
you'll see people not caring about, for instance, the homeless population. So,
oh, just
nobody cares when people are homeless because um, I
yes.
apologize. I'm a mom.
Don't worry about it. Yeah,
Yes.
people are homeless because of the capitalist system, and
Well, absolutely.
yeah, it makes them selfish
But nobody
doggy
feels
dog life.
responsible to shelter them because it was their individual failing.
No, that's
Right.
a sham. Again,
Right.
make people think that it was their individual failing. It was not. It was capitalism that blinded this person or somehow influenced this person to get to the state that they are right now. And say that some people don't even have a choice. Some people lose their jobs and they can't pay their mortgage, so they gotta move on the street. Just simple like that. They lose
Right.
their jobs, especially with this coronavirus thing going on right now. You know how much people that probably lost their jobs, couldn't pay their mortgage, and had to move to Skid Row?
Absolutely. And like we don't really take care of our mentally ill in the United States that well either. They make it very tough for them to get any type of benefits to like live off of substantially. It's mainly like people who come from like middle class households who get SSI for mental illness. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
it can be tough. Now, we're at the halfway mark. So I'm going to not switch the topic. I'm going to switch it to what it isn't. Right. And so I guess I'll start that off. To me, capitalism is not, um, capitalism is not exploitative. And so, Nahari, come here. She's just gonna be in the live today. She wants my attention, so we're gonna give her my attention. Come here, baby. Come on. You can sit on my lap. So this is to me. Are you there? It looks like you're frozen. It looks like you're frozen. Okay. So for me, capitalism is not exploitative. And I mean, communism is not exploitative. I apologize for misspeaking. Capitalism is completely exploitative. And so um, when you have like countries like Cuba who compensate their educators at, a pretty decent um, amount to live off of compared to our educators, you see exactly what they're
Hmm.
valuing within their system. And so, also, Cuba has
Got a good
really
point.
good medical healthcare um, with their facilities and their practitioners. And
Hmm.
so, so much to the point where a lot of citizens around the world will do medical tourism because they can't afford to do so in Western culture. What do you think communism isn't?
Well, I think communism isn't when there's people, a couple of people getting rich out of a pandemic, when people are losing their jobs, losing their houses, all that kind of stuff. That's what communism is. That's what capitalism is. When a rich man will watch poor people starve in the street and not give them money to help. That's what communism is. Communism isn't everything America is, basically. Selfishness, the other disrespect for the mental ill, the other disrespect for our teachers, the other disrespect for human life, the other disrespect for people generally, immigrants. You know, communism isn't like these things. And even in communism, everybody's said that's how it's supposed to be. Everybody's equal. Should be no colors and no races or nothing. So even in the Cuban, use Cuba for example. The Cubans, they would help everybody. They helped everybody. When Castro was there, they helped everybody. Every African that needed help, they helped. They helped Grenada. They helped Botswana. They helped Algeria. They helped South Africa with warriors, and they even helped some of the South American countries be liberated. So that's what communism is. What communism isn't is what America does when they send troops into somebody's country without any justification at all. Oh, we got WMDAs or whatever they call them, and they bomb all the troops, and they end up destroying cities. Then they form terrorist groups like ISIS that make a devastate, devastating. What's the word I'm looking for? Uh, touch on the Middle East or let's put Iraq. They did. This is all history. This is what happened. America created ISIS, so it's America's fault. That's what communism is, and we don't go into countries where we're not wanted and destroy it and act like we're doing something when we're not really doing anything.
Right. And so I guess, yes, the foreign policy of communism is basically protect your borders and, protect your allies. So, um, and a lot of times you'll see that um, communist countries get taxed heavily by capitalist countries. And so you'll see like the price of shoes is expensive in most communist and socialist countries.
Mm.
Electronics are like, you think the iPhone's expensive here. Go see what it costs in South America
Mm.
or Africa.
Yes.
Um, and so, in a lot of ways, um, we don't do free market like we claim, within capitalism. The free market would be like, as long as you do business with us, we tax you the same as everybody else. But
Mm.
that's not
No.
necessarily
Oh no.
the case.
Oh no. They put blockades. They put tariffs. You know, capitalism just so they don't want communism to win and make them look like fools. They do all kinds of things to block them from being great. Like look at Cuba. Look at the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
All these years they destroyed the sugar industry. You know.
Right. And so, like, even within the destruction of Cuba's industry, we got to remember, like, the United States has a vendetta against Cuba because Castro, um, he blocked a lot of business being done in Havana. And so,
Yeah.
the American car industry, set up lots of plants because the Detroit workers, the black people, were like, we're just saying basically.
It's okay. Keep going.
So yes, the black workers in Detroit, for example, were expecting to be paid fair wages, and they said, "We'll teach you Negroes. Let's go to Cuba," and they ended up having to still, go back to Detroit and come back to the United States. The
Mm,
American car companies, and so even in Cuba to this day, you'll see 1950s models body
that's
cars.
I have.
So I mean that's common. Even in Ecuador, when I was there, I think a few years before I arrived, they kicked out Chevron and made gasoline state
Wow.
gasoline. So you know that was very interesting to see how
Mm,
like American corporations. It's pretty rare that American corporations put corp. You know, the United States puts any bans or restrictions on them. They're pretty much bought out by the corporations, and the state is like, you can put as much money in my face as you want to. Let me figure out how to do it for myself.
mm,
So it's very interesting because United States government, they will do like monopoly bust, but they haven't done one in over a decade, I'm sure. um, so because these like companies keep getting bigger and bigger, and I'm like, if Disney buys one more thing outside of ABC, ESPN, Disney, I am going to like
yeah.
throw a fit. Like some of these
Yeah.
things are just too huge, and eliminates competition. And it's not a free market when you buy out, you know, everything.
True.
So, what do you have to say about that?
Mm. Oh no, no. I think you're right. I think you're right. Absolutely right. And let's talk about Disney. Disney is a perfect example of what of capitalism. They're in everything. They're influencing children,
Right.
so they could have lifetime customers and consumers. I'm sorry, consumers or zombies. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. There's it's a whole
Right. And it's it's
empire.
it's it's only like a symptom of like larger problems, when the United States government refuses to try to control those big behemoths, those big conglomerates.
Oh
Um,
yeah, they already paid for their politicians and their agenda for them
right.
to run. So yeah.
Well, and also it's the American people's taxes that are keeping the United States afloat, and like the 1% does not pay their share fare whatsoever.
Mm, that's true. That is
Yeah,
so true.
that's
Other
like
part.
probably the worst part about capitalism. You'll see Trump. He had to pay, only 750 in American taxes, but in other countries he was paying like 15 grand. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
those communist countries like, nah, you can use the tax code, but only so much. You still got to put up something.
Mhm,
So
definitely.
right.
Come with that cash.
Hey, yeah, we gotta fund the state medicine. You know.
For real.
All right. So the next topic we're at is whoop whoop capitalism.
Capitalism.
Bloop 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 bloop.
So yes. Um, you know, this whole system of capitalism comes from monarchies you know. And it's like when they want to want to come up with the idea how to free the slaves, but still keep them at bondage. They were like, let's give them a sham democracy, still wait breaking for the wage. So that's basically what leads the way. And since the majority of the people that did this are white, that's why we have it equal to white supremacy. So, you know, ever since the monarch said, let's get their heads, let's get them, let's free the chains off their hands, but let's change off their head, their brains. Once you have chains on your brains, you do anything. So that's what capitalism is now, because they use those chains to make a whole lot of money to set them up for generational wealth today. And that's
Absolutely.
why we say it's equal to white supremacy.
Right. Absolutely. So, let's see. One of our ancestors, I believe it was Claude Anderson, Dr. Claude Anderson, the economist. He stated that Europeans created whiteness or races to race to the gold in the new world that wasn't new, that only they were ignorant to. Um, and so
New
it was
world.
a bunch of royal Europeans who made a decree that, hey, let's go and exploit these other lands. And you
Because we got
guys,
no money.
are peasants in Europe, can become, kings
Royalty.
in the colonies, What were you saying?
No, no, no. They could become royalty, I said.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what happened. Most of them who came over here, their kids end up having, well, they end up having slaves. Those slaves brought the wealth, and they become billionaires and millionaires. And yeah, that's basically like royalty now. I mean, it's not Elizabeth wealth, but yeah, they're getting there.
Well, Europe flushed its toilets and said, go out to the new world and, you
Yeah, I
know,
mean, yeah,
criminals
that's what
and
the
peasants and said, hey,
thieves.
yeah, if you don't want to be poor in Europe after the Black Plague of unsanitary conditions, that's what the Black Plague was from. Um, if you don't want to live over here, maybe you could go where other people are already and conquer the land in the name of God. God, country, and gold.
Hmm.
That was what racism is. Racism is the race to wealth, exploiting the other countries because there was only so much space in Europe. And so when you look at that and the fact that um, most white people today weren't considered white people 100 years ago. Um,
Mm,
and
yeah.
so whiteness was specific to Anglo Saxons, white Anglo Saxon Protestants, uh, especially here in the United States. And so then they expanded it once the unions began with Black people, Irish people, Italian people, and a lot of other gypsies who felt oppressed and
Mm.
like they would never obtain whiteness. And then certain groups use phenotypes to ascribe to whiteness. And so that's
Yeah.
how racism began. Um,
Yeah.
and
True.
so that's
They use.
why race is a social construct. But I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to talk over you. You can go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish because I'm just agreeing with you.
Right. So yeah, race is a social construct, but you know, there's also a lineage. You know, to certain
That's true.
things. So yeah, what do you have
Yeah.
to say about
What do I have to say about white people? Trying
or
trying
whiteness,
to hold on
the construct of whiteness?
trying to hold on to their power with this common capitalist system. But yeah, it was built by white people for white people to make money off the slaves of black people. You know what I'm saying? It has to go. And I think that we need to educate more conscious people about this situation because it's still happening. The colorism, they use mulattoes to to open up a class of people. You know what I'm saying? So they'll be like, okay, let's put master's babies, which are the mulattoes, right? And
Right,
the slaves underneath. So they
right,
created a whole other system like that. That's the white supremacist system. So
right,
I'm not gonna let you come to me unless you go to my boy, even though I don't claim him as my boy, but I'm still keeping that money in their relationship or whatever. But that's a long story. So
right. And you're describing colorism for sure. And that
that's
typical hierarchy.
that's what they use to for their white supremacists. They will pick a couple of Negroes, and be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, they made it. They made it. In fact, we gave him all the money you can count, and we made it. There's
Right.
no racism. And when they do that, everybody goes sit down and they implicate their plans again to strengthen everything that they have. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And like when they look at, I want to be careful because um there's a lot of
But
people who we would see as like white passing who couldn't pass at all. I would say in the 1960s, the 1950s, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So, hey, that's enough. So, I wouldn't say that. Um, oh my goodness. So
Having a
I wouldn't
party.
say that. Um, hey, baby, here, here you go. So, um, like I was saying, I wouldn't want to say that it was necessarily easier for octoroons, quadroons, mulattoes, only because Adam Clayton Powell, um, he was a senator and he was still not allowed to go certain places, which is wild,
Yes.
right? Um,
Wow.
and, Thurgood Marshall, he
Hmm.
was, you know, he was whooping
Look
their
at how much
tail,
trouble they gave him.
huh?
How much trouble they gave him.
Right, right. Well, like, and he was whooping their tails in court so much that they decided to make him a Supreme Court judge. You can't beat
Yeah.
him, join.
That's what they do.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
So,
Yeah.
that was the beauty of like, blackness back then. They still saw themselves as black, even if their parents weren't both black. And so, um, you know, I think recently, they've been claiming biracialism because I won't say it, but with the white mothers, they're gonna, identify with both. Um, so which is all right. You can do whatever you want, but um, it all plays into capitalism, because you have to have a social hierarchy, in order to perpetrate exploitation.
Mm,
So,
yep,
um,
it's true. You gotta have that base.
absolutely.
Yeah, bourgeoisie base. And the bourgeoisie is getting 90%, and the people's getting 10%. That's what it works. That's
Right.
what capitalism does. Select the few.
Absolutely.
Um,
And it's
Go
kind
ahead,
of weird
man.
because the like the for example, the black bourgeoisie will claim like crab in a barrel syndrome, and it's like, well, why is there even a freaking barrel? You
Yeah,
know?
they put it there. They implicate the barrel so we pull each other down. That's
Right,
the
right,
way it is.
right. But like, are we gonna blame the other crabs? Why are we in a barrel? Like, in the first place. We're supposed to be in the ocean. This is not the natural order of things. So,
Yeah.
you know, and to me, like, a lot of people look down on people, but they never look up, right? And so they're gonna blame less than 800 million in food stamps on poor people, but they're not going to talk about how the richest people in the United States pay zero taxes.
No, no, of course not. Why would
You
they do
know,
that?
right? But like, if they paid taxes, then you guys wouldn't have to worry about the people on food stamps.
No, no. Oh man, Jesus.
That's what capitalism does to you. Gee,
Ah.
and like for me, I'm for the people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
I'm not like, I'm not one of those people who like will call out a clause and not like be able to be there in the flesh, to deal with people. And so it's actually pretty funny to me, um how most of the people who would point out the evils of capitalism would just like never talk to actual poor people like ever,
Mm,
because like
no.
they're either scared or they think they're better than them. I feel
Well,
like,
that's what happens. That's what happens when you embrace capitalism. So you have to basically oppress one person or oppress the masses of a couple in order
right,
to get that gain. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So
And so
interesting.
like, well, let's dig in a little bit deeper into the whiteness aspect. Like,
Yes.
um
We got to talk about them again? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Organize yourselves, people. You want
right,
to
right,
fight?
absolutely. Well, what did you feel about the Obama administration? Um,
I hated it the whole fucking time.
right.
I just didn't like Obama, period, from the get go. I
Hmm.
don't know why. Just wasn't my forte.
Hmm.
Then, like, I'm just saying, maybe they're going after the next guy, so I'm not really with the next guy either. I just Obama was just the poster boy for telling y'all racism is not in America.
Right.
You know, so that's
Well,
what I think.
because he is a capitalist, so
Yes,
he has to deny racism.
all the way.
Yeah, and it's to me that the aspect
Wow.
of him never really, he said, oh man, did you see his interview this year? It said like he couldn't speak up on matters of racism because it would divide the nation further or some crap like that.
Yeah.
um and I was like, we've always been divided, like.
Where the hell you been at, buddy? Did you just crawl out of the hole?
Yeah, he did.
Did
He did.
you?
He was insulated in
Pat him on
Hawaii.
the head.
You
We're
know,
gonna
he's
pat him on the head.
due to capitalism, right? He came from a rich family, um,
Mm.
on both sides, to be honest. Um,
Both sides. Lucky fucker. Go ahead.
he was he was insulated from a lot of
Thanks.
racial, yeah, like systemic oppression, right?
Mm.
That would
Yeah, that's
easily lead
terrible.
to racism. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's just go ahead.
right,
I'm listening. Listen.
right. And so I feel like a lot of like black people, whenever they feel like they've made it, like they get in this bubble, and it's like racism doesn't exist because I made it and I don't see it, you know. And it's like that's like somebody saying like, well, I've never been, violated as a child, so it doesn't exist. Obviously that would be a fallacy. um so when people look at things like, oh, racism doesn't exist because I've made it, I'm successful, and I have white friends, and they look
Yeah,
at
that's the
me.
plan.
Right, right,
It's their plan to fool you, trick you, make you think there's nothing going on. Then, bam, got you, sucker. You ever seen that movie? I'm gonna get you, sucker. Yeah, that's where they got you.
we get bamboozled so easily. You know what I think it is that like within the system of like white supremacy, we seek white validation so much to where like if we get a decent job in a white neighborhood and our circle's white, we're like, oh my god, they're the greatest. But if you were wearing like a tank and a fitted cap and baggy jeans, like they would not even recognize you because like they're like, yeah, he's not
Mm,
right, right,
yeah, it's, the system's all messed up, man. This
right.
is the way. This is just a message to us, like how capitalism has treated the world over the last couple of years. We're gonna have to actually organize ourselves so we can fight this evil.
Absolutely. And like even with, for example, I remember Dr. Bill Cosby, he was talking down to a lot of black people. And he said you have to have like regular names like Sarah and Rebecca and Bob and Joe, um, with which I believe African Americans are trying to connect with their ancestors when they do unique names. So a lot of times, are you there? Are you frozen? I think you're frozen right now. Um, but neither
Yes.
here. Okay, you're there. Okay, I just heard you. But neither here nor there. A lot of times when we are in the midst of trying to seek white validation, we often put ourselves into a hole, and you know we're still trying to win individually, but like we're still judged as a collective.
Mm.
And I so when black people don't realize that, like, look, Africans, I should say, I'm using black people so to
It's okay.
counter. Um, um, we definitely have to look at it from a standpoint of we need to do things collectively. Having outliers doesn't mean we're winning. Um, Having luxury items doesn't mean we're winning. If anything, it means you're putting money into somebody else's industry that doesn't belong to you. So, yeah, what do you have to say about like Black collectivism? All right, so since I can't hear you, I'm going to say what I think about Black collectivism is that we definitely need to be more community based, like the Black Panther Party was, because they certainly studied not only Marxism, Leninism, and Maoism in their 10-point program and implementing it in real time. So much so to where the United States government had to adopt actually had to adopt some of their methods in which how they dealt with things. So um, they had to create a WIC program because the Panther Party was taking care of their pregnant women and children. They had to create the
Mm,
free lunch program, the government, because the Panther Party was feeding the children before and after school. Um, you know,
mm,
so,
mm.
it was so much so that the government had to adjust and had to become more socialist because the Black Panther Party was proving in real time that when you employ communist, you know, uh, praxis, then
Mm.
it becomes more effective for the people and it only creates a stronger community.
Definitely. Stronger community, stronger fucking nation,
Absolutely.
stronger people, stronger economy. It's just it's just what needs to be done. But these people are so blinded by this. Me, 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 me. They gotta get a fancy car, they get some jewelry, they think they're on top of the world.
Right. And like the I think the selfishness comes from it amazes me, right? Because I'm not really religious, but when I see religious people talking about most things,
Mm,
um, I don't think they realize that Jesus was a socialist in their story.
mm, that's true. And they use religion to infiltrate with their white supremacy into the African neighborhood to make
Right,
us calm and collective and even fly away from our dreams or our goals as being revolutionaries to change the whole situation that's suppressing us.
right. Yeah,
So
and
yes.
like I was like, oh man, like almost felt like when I was reading like the story of Jesus, he healed people for free. That's free healthcare. Um
That's a good one. Go ahead. What else you
uh
got?
he flipped over the tables in the synagogue and called the priest a den of thieves for trying to
Yep.
charge people for miracles.
Hypocrites. Yeah, go
Um
ahead.
and he claimed his own sovereignty as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Um, he also um, said that the first commandment was love.
Oh,
Uh,
love thy neighbor as yourself.
right. And he also, you know, he also fed people who attended
Mm,
sermons, and he fed them by the thousands, supposedly. So, when you look at the story of Christ, or if you look at most other stories, yeah, you know, um, from
facts.
a religious sense, it's always like, oh wow, this is socialist, and you guys are like in total denial, with even your own standards.
Mm, yes, true. That is so true.
All
And
right,
they,
we hit the 50-minute mark. I apologize for chewing up that last minute and a half.
no, you're doing good. Doing good. Very well.
You carried it.
Very well.
We
You
gotta.
carried it. Excellent.
All right. Okay. So thank you guys so much for joining us on our Black Leftist chat with the African People Revolutionary Party. Please check us out on Instagram and our content. You guys have a wonderful, blessed day.